It's the most wonderful time of the year, and thus, let us review one of the most wonderful Christmas movies that there has ever been, based on the Charles Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol. But not just A Christmas Carol, but the most epic, amazing, rivetedly performed by the Muppets and, of course, by Sir Michael Caine. Let us, with a thankful heart and an endless joy, talk about A Muppet's Christmas Carol. This is Last Page. Number 32, issue number of Last Page. Remy correctly used his hands in opposite positions this time. I noticed that. Nice adjustment, Rembo. Welcome to Last Page. I am Maverick King, your host, and to talk about this amazing 1992 Christmas classic, I am joined by Rembo and, of course, Jason Cedars. This movie has a very, very close, near and dear to many of our hearts, but especially myself and Rembo, and I'm curious where Jason falls and where this movie is on his Christmas list of mandatory watches. I think everyone has their own personal list of mandatory Christmas watches, whether it be Elf or Miracle on 34th Street. This movie for sure, and there are lots of iterations of A Christmas Carol. There's the Jim Carrey iteration. There's the old classic black and white movies. So there's many versions of this tale by Charles Dickens, but this movie really nails it on a lot of levels, on fun, on scary and horror-filled elements. A lot of just a nice big 90-minute breadth experience for the Christmas audience. So this movie, as I mentioned, came out in 1992. It was directed by Brian Henson, brother of Jim Henson. Jim Henson had passed away just 2 years prior to this movie coming out. This was the first Muppets movie that came out after his passing. And there's a lot to talk about with this movie. But at the box office, this movie had a $12 million budget, which is it sounds like a lot for a Muppets movie that takes place kind of on one stage or like a set or a kind of an enclosed environment. $12 million is quite a bit, I think, for that time, and ended up making $27.2 million at the box office. So decent, made its money back, and I'm sure it has made much of its money back on the video cassette or VHS releases subsequently. So this is a amazing movie. Michael Caine is the serious Ebenezer Scrooge, who is going to be met by three spirits from the past, present, and future Christmases, and learn a valuable lesson along the way. Rembo, you wanted this movie. You wanted to talk about this movie. All the Christmas movies you could talk about. You want to talk about this one specifically. Floor is yours. Give me your feelings and just overall thoughts on A Muppet's Christmas Carol.
This movie gives me the exact same feelings I get watching A Princess Bride. In that, I think it touches a lot of different heartstrings. It has a lot of different themes. It's a classic story, but it is actually done with an incredible level, with Michael Caine's incredible level of seriousness, while also having all of the fun, quirky elements of a Muppet movie intertwined. I think Gonzo and Rizzo are just an unbeatable movie duo in their banter back and forth and the silliness of the characters, and how they interact with their environment. But overall, I think it's a super fun romp, and I think that's almost any Christmas movie is centered around being fun to some degree. Or I wouldn't say every, but a lot of them are, right? Like Home Alone, Elf. These are fun movies that are also heartwarming. That's kind of the nature of Christmas, right? It's fun, but it also makes you feel good. You have more serious movies, like It's a Wonderful Life, some fun elements in it, but I think this movie has a great score. I love the original soundtracks for this. They're very catchy, and you can sing along to them. I think Michael Caine plays it so well that you could just take his character completely exactly how he acts it Take him out of a Muppet movie, put him into a regular live action movie, and it would totally fit. Nothing changed. And I think that's super impressive. And not the only person to have done that in a Muppet movie, which we'll get to that later. But
Tim Curry.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Jason. Yeah, exactly. So I was going to say, the people don't talk about it, but the Muppets' ability to grab top tier actors and pull them into a role and get them to actually put their best effort in is quite an accomplishment. And this movie is no exception. Yeah, those are my initial thoughts and feelings. Jason, I'm very curious. What number of viewing is this? Because this is, I mean, I watch this at least once a year. So I'm going on 29 viewings, 30 viewings at minimum. Jason, what number of viewing is this for you? And what are your initial thoughts?
So after doing some research on this movie, I realized why this wasn't such an epic movie for me growing up. So I think the Muppets were more, concrete in your family upbringing than it were mine. I don't know why. If it was the Muppet Show, I remember being something we watched a lot, but it's not as many as a movie. So when we talk about Treasure Island in this movie so much, it is something I didn't watch. But so I'm 92, so I'm 10 years old. Home Alone 2 came out this same month in theaters and everything like that. And so I was a big Home Alone fan. I remember watching the original Home Alone more times than I can count. So I think that Christmas, that Home Alone 2 was something I focused on more. And then also Aladdin came out that same, I don't know if it was December or that time frame there. So I think I was focused on those two, like more Disney kid movies when I was a kid growing up. So this one fell under the radar, and I mean, probably watched it once or twice throughout, childhood and stuff, but nothing as far as like a Christmas Story. That's something, I watch every single year. I'm forced to sometimes with a 24-hour broadcast that they have on some channels and things like that. They used to, but I do enjoy that one actually as a rewatch, and Elf being up there too, probably, but no, probably I can count on one hand how many times I saw this movie, but so impressed, and probably enjoyed it more as an adult because, yeah, like you said, Michael Caine, it's like Shakespearean like acting that he's doing in this movie. And little research that he went into this role, I think he's quoted as saying, like, I am going to treat every Muppet like they are an actual actor. I'm not going to be like Muppety myself. He says, I'm going to bring seriousness to this and act like this is a very serious production. I'm not going to think of this as like a kid's movie. And it shows so much, and it brings like so much class to A Christmas Carol, which I'm thinking more of like Christmas carols, like the Mickey one, the Mickey's Christmas Carol, which was what, 80, I think I wrote it down, 83. That was what big for me as my childhood. I think I watched that one more, like the actual Scrooge McDuck being, Scrooge, was much more cemented in my mind. But then as far as Christmas carols go, I mean, I looked up how many renditions of Christmas Carol, and it's so long. The list is absolutely ridiculous of adaptations of A Christmas Carol. I mean, it's into like thousands, from like stage plays to radio things, to movies to TV. And I mean, just recently, the Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds one, I thought Spirited was actually pretty funny, like 2022. Yeah, just came out, which I was expected or didn't expect to like that as much as I did. But then Jim Carrey one, but then the Patrick Stewart one, like I forgot about that one. I watched that one quite a few times as a kid, I feel like, and that was just A Christmas Carol. And then Scrooge with Bill Murray, like I remember that one watching it a little too early because that was 88, so not too much far around my childhood, and that one being like a little bit darker version of that one. Like, gosh, I remember the Ghost of Christmas Future being like the little demons inside of his like cape or something like that. Like that one scared me like more than it should have for a Christmas movie. So but enjoyed this. Yeah, it was very, Jim Henson's Brian. Oh no, Brian Henson was his son.
Brother.
No, son.
Oh yeah, brother.
Brian
Henson's his brother.
No. I mean, like I just
Jim
checked.
wasn't that old when he died.
I'm pretty sure it's his brother.
Really? Because I was like really impressed that this was his son taking over.
Yeah, because
the son
Jim Henson was approximately like 50 when he died.
He's the son of puppeteer Jim and Jane.
Brian?
Yeah. Yeah,
swear to God, the entire time
Jason just owned me on national television.
And then
Brian Henson, 63. So he's only 60 now. Wow. So I'm a fucking idiot. Good job, Jason. You got me.
Yeah, because it was directorial debut, and then he did this one, and then he did Muppets Treasure Island, and I think that's it. It's like he just did these two, but like how much he had the Jim Henson feel to it. But I kept getting like, especially the first Spirit, like more Dark Crystal Labyrinth kind of a vibe. So he had like a little bit more of like a darker kind of thing to the newer puppets, which I thought was kind of cool. That it was none of the old puppets being present, future, past. There was new Muppets kind of going into it. So no, I was I enjoyed this a lot, and like I said, I watched it with my wife, and it's she spent many years in your guys' household, so it meant a lot to her, and I remember her getting emotional and things like that too. So I like being part of these like new movies for our family now to watch every year. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. It was a fun watch.
We get introduced at the very beginning of the movie. It is Gonzo and Rizzo breaking the fourth wall. They are the people that are ushering us through the narrative. Charles Dickens, as played by Gonzo. One of the great hallmarks of Muppet movies is that the Muppets get credited as themselves, which is such a cool like little thing. When you look at the credits, it'll say like Gonzo, as himself or whatever, and that very much plays a role into this movie. And I've mentioned the Darth Vader entrance before when I was talking about Brian Cox in X-Men 2. And
Yeah.
I do wonder, because Frank Oz obviously voices Miss Piggy, other characters, and is obviously the voice of Yoda. And I wonder how much influence
Not even
he
that
had.
old.
Hmm?
I was gonna say Frank Oz isn't even that old. He's not even 70 yet.
Yes, he is.
Oh, he's a kid.
No, dude, swear to God, dude
No
is
way.
like,
Okay, am
I
I going to be
swear
wrong?
he's like 69.
No.
Dude, I swear.
He's 79.
79?
He's 79.
Oh, okay, dyslexic brain. I have tinnitus and dyslexia. What do you want from me?
Well, if you were saying he was 97, I'd believe your dyslexia. Now you're just being silly.
Wait, I
Okay,
think you
I'm
said
sorry.
in his
I totally
70s.
mistook that earlier. Okay,
He's
sorry,
still in his
sorry.
70s. I think that's what you said. So you're technically right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. But yes, Frank Oz, who he himself directed, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Michael Caine. Great comedy,
Oh,
heavily
interesting.
underrated
Oh,
comedy.
he directed that?
Frank Oz directed that movie.
Oh, so random. I
underrated comedy.
but I didn't know that. Wow.
But in this movie, it's interesting because I am blown away watching this movie for the umpteenth time. The direction, the pace, and the cinematography of this movie is mind-blowingly great. On a practical level, the special effects they're able to pull off, the digital special effects, the green screen special effects, and there's so many things about this movie that are incredible. But to circle back to my point I was making in it earlier, the intro of Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge is very Darth Vader-y. We get the great setup is he's coming around that corner right now. When? Now. And the music kicks in, and the camera is like a Dutch angle, like off to like on its axis, and it's to the feet, and the feet come walking out, and he's all in black. It's really cool. It's just such a great. And then the music kicks in, and it's kind of like ooh, scary and dark.
Did it just get colder out here?
It is a masterful, just everything, and watching the behind the scenes of this movie, the puppeteering, it almost feels like, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but it feels almost hive-mindy that these guys did it so long around each other that they know how to pull this off and make it feel like a real lived-in environment, even though they're filming on this like sound stage with these very like miniature constructed houses and everything. So I love that intro.
I was reading that
song.
I was reading that Michael Caine had to walk around a lot of planks and boards below it because so many puppets were acting on the thing. So imagine having to do all this, but then be on this 1 foot board as you're kind of walking around these sets,
Yeah, they would have the puppeteers would be like standing on the floor, and then they'd have a platform with the Muppets on them that they're controlling like multiple Muppets at once. And so the Muppets are here, and then Michael Caine, they have to look like they're on the floor. So Michael Caine's walking on those planks you talk about. And then they're like walking on the side and like keeping up with him. It's really cool. And so Remy, the intro, the sound of, we get the introduction to Ebenezer Scrooge. How is it watching the intro and the introduction of Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge in a world of Muppets?
It's awesome. Great opening song, just Scrooge. Title is just Scrooge. Yeah, it's just setting the stage for. I mean, and that they don't. It's like one of those things where when Scrooge is such an established character, even obvious, like when was the first? When did Charles Dickens write Scrooge?
1800s,
I was going to say
1840s or
1800s.
something
So
like
we're
that.
talking
Yeah.
about like over 100 years. This character has been well established. So it's like, how are you going to do it? How are you going to bring them on? You don't need to spend like a lot of time doing it, but you need to make it meaningful and impactful. And I think they do. Like right off the bat, he like steps in, like you said, very Darth Vader-esque, very imposing. Michael Caine also being kind of taller, a taller person, I think really helps. And then it's just the whole town is just gathering around to talk about how terrible of a person he is. And they're all just slowly creeping in on him as he gets to his work. Yes. And then they don't give you any real straight shots of his face. It's all just kind of like you see, it's more like profile. He's very darkly lit, and you don't see anything of his face until Scrooge is getting worse. And then he turns around and stares at him. Everybody like disperses.
Wow, look at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really great stuff. I think, yeah, it is very, the way that it's shot. And I'm trying to, like, in my mind, there's some interesting cinematography choices for other Muppet movies as well. Muppets from Space, I think, is shot more plainly, other than the LSD trip in space when he's talking to fishes. And Muppets Treasure Island has, Cabin Fever song, where it's like all super zany and like warping screens. So Muppet movies actually do a really good job of using creative filming choices and editing choices. And I think that first opening scene is like pretty exemplary of that. Great just intro and kickoff to what the whole movie was going to be. Apparently, just found out that George Carlin was one of the was considered for this role.
Mm-hmm.
3 other like random British actors that I don't know, and George Carlin. And I'm just imagining how this movie would have been with George Carlin. It probably would have been a lot funnier. Movie's already pretty funny as is, but George Carlin in this role would have been a very different vibe.
I mean, I think it was so well casted because they didn't need a comedic person to be Scrooge,
Sure, yeah.
Because that's like you were talking about the comedy, and it felt more adult and it had great comedic timing because I think it's been the same writer for all of these movies. It feels like it's the same guy who does all of this stuff, and props to him to keep a very unique kind of style to these Muppet movies because I mean it's sharp, it's witty, Gonzo and Rizzo and like some of the comments they make and the one-liners that you guys remember as kids and my wife quoting on the couch. I mean they're funny, it is stuff to be able to quote down the line. So they did such a great job with the casting of Michael Caine and then being everyone else being that comedic kind of angle besides him.
Jerry Jewell is the writer who wrote this movie and Muppets Treasure Island and Muppets from Space, the 3 best Muppet movies.
And probably the show as well, if he was, attached to all the movies.
I'm pretty sure he also did work on
like my 2 favorite characters, I think, in Muppets are the 2 guys on the balcony, the 2 old dudes, and I love that.
And Waldorf, definitely.
Yeah. The fact that they were both Marley, they were like the brothers, brothers Marley. It's right. Like, of course, they couldn't have just done the one guy; they had to do both as. I can't remember the other Marley, Jacob Marley. That's right, and Robert Marley. I got the J.P. Morgan kind of vibes, though.
I would say Muppet Rats, greater than sign, or if it's, I guess, TV, greater than sign, Minions, just great, hilarious, little group of just mischievous, like, annoying characters for a character like Scrooge that worked for him, along with Kermit the Frog, who is playing Bob Cratchit, and that I love that scene, especially as you get older and you realize what they're talking about, because when you're 10 and they're talking about evictions, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like they're talking about like adult stuff. But then when he's like a giant stack of evictions that he wants to serve on Christmas Day, you're just like, Jesus Christ, this guy is evil.
It's like,
hard
wow,
to try
there
to make.
certainly are a lot of them. He's like, well, you can gift wrap them.
That's
it's very hard to make a villain in kids' minds sometimes. It's easy for us, you slap that very like he gave someone rapey vibes or, murdery vibes or something like that. But in a kid's movie, how do you portray, like a villainy things like serving eviction notices or, or that are stealing money, or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, that's what bad guys do.
I'm trying to remember what his name is. Fred comes in.
Yeah.
Fred's another character that comes in, and that actor,
Stephen McIntosh.
I was trying to remember what he was from. He's in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh, nice.
That, yeah,
Nice.
Super random. Okay,
good on you, Fred. But he comes in, and then that's when Beaker and I forget the other character's name. Beaker and
Doctor something.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Beaker
I forgot, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Not Peter.
I forget, but that when all that happens and they come in to ask for money, and you can just see Michael Caine's like boiling over of like, and he's still standing there, just being like, so sir, about your donation, like all those little things are great, and a lot of the dialogue that Michael Caine has is straight from the book. Like a lot of his dialogue is just traditional dialogue, and it's just funny that they just found ways to use the same lines that are in the book, but then surround it with Muppet hilarity.
I think when Gonzo's like first narrating, he's like quoting the first lines of the book, and it seems so out of place, because it's like it's they already did a song and stuff like that, and so. But I do like how they did that, and in research they were saying this is one of the closest renditions to the actual book itself, which I didn't realize the book was written with the narrator being there the whole time. Like Charles Dickens is part of the whole story. Like so many of the Christmas carols, Charles Dickens is not a character in the original book. Charles Dickens is a character in his own book, being the narrator. Following along Scrooge on all of his journeys. Like he's there, like how he is hanging from a rope, him and Rizzo, like as they're flying towards like something. Like in the book, Charles Dickens is essentially doing that. Which I haven't read the book. I feel bad that I haven't yet.
I was gonna say, I've actually. It is funny. I've never read the book. I really should. For as much as I love this movie, I think I'd appreciate reading the book, especially with how close it is adapted. But the best line of the movie is in that scene. The best line of the whole fucking movie is when he's talking to Bunsen, Beaker and Bunsen.
Beaker and Bunsen. Yeah, Bunsen.
Beaker and Bunsen. He's talking to Beaker and Bunsen, and he's saying, he's like, we have jails and poorhouses. The homeless can go there. And he's like, but some would rather die. If they're gonna die, they better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Yes.
Best line of the movie. I use that. I find ways to use that in my day-to-day life. I love that line.
That got me too. The decrease the surplus population.
That is in the book. That is a line straight from the book.
No, I bet. Yeah.
So then the beginning of Scrooge going home, or I guess before Scrooge goes home, we get the rats, and Scrooge generously gives the rats and Kermit Christmas Day off, and then they all celebrate. They go see the penguins doing skating, which just on a puppeteer level, like it is really great. Like when they're sliding like across the ice, and Kermit's like doing a pirouette, and it's just very cool, like practical effects that they're somehow getting all of these characters to do this in the middle of this movie, and it doesn't break the pace of the movie at all. The movie is one of the best paced movies ever. Like there's no moment where you're like, oh, it's slowing down. It literally just goes, like, narrative is constant, but also all of the Muppet madness. It's not like, oh, we need to take a break for 5 minutes, let the Muppets do something. The Muppets are always doing something along with the story, which I think really makes this a unique experience.
It's like a high budget Muppet movie when you see the legs of all the Muppets, like in the shows and stuff like that. You never see the legs, but then in the movies, there's like legs galore. Like there's this one scene where I think it's Kermit singing with Tiny Tim on his shoulder, and he's doing some song, and he's walking along, and like the earth is kind of spinning a little bit as he's doing it. But I'm like, ooh, they put their dollars into this scene right here, their puppetry dollars with Kermit's legs. Like, this is before CG, so they had to actually do it.
Yeah, Rem. They introduce Scrooge Goes Home, and we get the introduction of Marley and Marley, Robert and Jacob Marley.
Yeah.
Everything from the intro of that is very like, as a kid, when he goes to open the door and the handle turns into his face, that was scary.
For sure. No, yeah, I already knew what you were. I could finish your sentence. That scene stands out in my memory as a scary scene, probably the scariest scene of this movie. There's a couple other that are kind of like creepy, eerie, don't make you feel good, but I think that's the scariest one. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about that as a kid, watching the handle morph into his face and yell at him. I don't know. It's weird. It's something just wrong part of the brain activated. But it's their introduction and Scrooge, just going through he's like, everything's really dark. He like lights one candle, like one single candle in his giant house. Lights like one single candle. They show up and he just doesn't believe it. And then he's trying to like convince himself why this isn't happening. And they're just escalating the mocking. He's like, you might be a bit of undigested beef or a glob of mustard. Yes, there's more of gravy than a grave about you. And they just lose more gravy than a grave. Where do you come up with such terrible puns? And he's like, don't criticize me. It's great. It's great. I love the effects there. That's the most CG of the movie is them with the dangling chains. It's still executed pretty well.
CG, is it CG, you think?
Or at the very least, it's superimposed. Like they are using all those are like, puppeteering effects as far as the chains and the characters themselves. But then, they're just superimposed and digitally enhanced to give that vibe. Okay. And you can see it when they like get up close to Scrooge. There's some like outcut lines around them that you can tell they're like not really there. But still a very well executed scene. Great song. I think that's probably my favorite song of the whole movie. We're Marley and Marley, Everett and
Whoa!
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's a great introduction. Those two characters, and it's not the only time they show up in the movie. They show up in in the scene later. But a great spot, perfect spot for those two characters.
Jason, you love Waldorf, Statler and Waldorf just like we do. Your interpretation of this scene.
Oh no, it's a great, it is funny that it sets a scary tone right there off the bat. I like that, and then like those two characters are cast perfectly for that role. I mean, I know it's a musical movie. It's just the songs. It's just any time I'm like that guy in the movie theater is just like, oh, the songs. When any kids movie kind of comes on, it's just like, and they weren't that bad, but it's just not my cup of tea. If I could go without
like the songs in a Muppets Christmas Carol.
I mean, it's songs in general. It's not specific to this movie because you're right. They're fun. Yeah. There is some movies. Yes.
What is a movie that you would make an exception for?
I mean, if we go something like old and classic, I mean, like something like The Sound of Music or something where those songs I feel like are more part of it and the musical. But like, is this a musical? Yes, and I guess Muppets are known for having musical. Is it musical in all their movies? Like, and Treasure Island's about the only one, but it's like the Manhattan one or the New York one and the Space one. Are those all musicals too?
I don't think Muppets from Space has musical notes.
And then Takes Manhattan or Take Over New York or something like that.
I forget about
Muppets Caper or
Great Muppet Caper
or whatever. Yeah, I haven't seen those other ones in a very long time. I think they do have musical numbers, but this I believe is the most musical heavy
Yeah, I didn't expect that, and so that was also part. I'm just like, ugh. But like you said, I guess it's something that grows on you, and yeah, you remember the lyrics and things. So, it's just like right off the bat, I'm like, oh my god, there's gonna be a lot
Did
of
you watch
songs in
this
this
movie
movie.
with Cece?
I did, and she did not care for it. I mean, she was off doing other things. It was like we had her food, and we were like ready for her to kind of enjoy this. And I think it was a little old for her. I think Muppets are not quite. I mean, 4 years old. She likes Muppet
Yeah.
Babies. Muppet Babies, the cartoon we've even tried to put on, and like even though, and then she kind of like, which it's
Let her
more
watch
imagination.
a couple Bluey episodes, and all of a sudden, all this classic stuff goes out the window.
Yeah, she's on the Trolls vibe right now. That's
Oh,
really
she's on
what's moving
Trolls.
over.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry that Muppets is too lowbrow for Cece. I'm on Trolls now. Thank you very much.
I need to have pop songs
Oh,
playing for
God.
just 2 minutes of them every 10 minutes. Like, what
Oh,
you hate.
lordy. Yeah.
But no. I had to put my 2 cents in on that. Like, I didn't expect it to be so musical, and even Michael Caine to have a little musical number there at the end. I was like, okay, you're flexing those chops, you know. So, I mean, yes, it was a fine introduction to the classic Christmas Carol intro.
The Marley and Marley, I love the line. It cracks me up every time when there's in the middle of singing that they espouse to recanting how great it was to seeing the little orphans, the little orphans that they kicked out with their frozen teddy bears, and they laugh, and then they're like, oh, that's really fucking funny. Like, that is really fucking brilliant. The way they pull that off. So obviously that's great. And then this is where the cinematography and the directing of this movie really comes to in full view once the Ghost of Christmas Past just about shows up. Scrooge is paranoid. He's in bed. The camera shows like part of his face, and his eyeball is like moving around. And then it's like shows the clock, and the camera's moving. It's like something's gonna happen. And then the white light floods behind the bedroom curtain, and this shot is like this, and then Scrooge just goes completely upright. And it's really cool. It's really well done. And I was really blown away watching it this time. And just this, you can make a kids movie, and as we've seen many times, you can phone it in or just be like, all right, let's just film it, and we'll do our Muppet stuff. But that was really well executed. I don't know how much they storyboarded of this, if this was all storyboard work, but it was really cool. And almost that eyeball shot was kind of Evil Dead-like, which a lot of this movie does have horror elements, which we should. Quick side note: we need more horror elements in kids' movies. You know why this kid? Everyone's complaining about kids. Oh, kids! They have all their cell phones. They have all these screens. They can't pay attention to anything. You know what they would pay attention to? If you scare the Jesus out of them when they watch a kids' movie. That's what would do it. They won't be running off to their iPads and their and their stupid. Not Bluey. I won't offend Jason by saying Bluey's stupid, but any of these kids things where it's just like, okay, like Moana. All right, I'll call Moana stupid. Moana's a stupid ass movie where the villain is a stupid volcano looking monster thing, and then also a ridiculous looking crab that's not scary at all. No one's going to be scared of that, so kids can just run around and be like, I'm not even watching this. And then what really happens, you put this movie in front of a kid, and they see the specter of death, the Grim Reaper pointing like you're going to die. That will get this kid generation on our level.
Oh, you will know soon enough, young father. So when kids see...
Mav's gonna have little there with his eyes peeled open like Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange, yeah.
Showing him horror movies when he's 3.
And this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So the more that horror stuff this kid watches, your kid, any kids, the more that you will have to stay up with them in the middle of the night fixing or changing sheets for bedwetting, or like this is going to induce more work for you. I guarantee it in the future. So the limiting the stuff. But hey, like my daughter though, she immediately sees something on TV she doesn't like, she's turning her head away or covering her eyes, and she has done that many a times with things. And I think she even started with this movie where it was kind of the intro. Michael Caine was a little too much, which going back and watching this is not a kid's movie. This is maybe a preteen or maybe like a younger adult, like the comedy that you were just talking about. It's so tongue-in-cheek, a lot of it, and no 4-year-old is going to get half the shit in this movie.
This is no. This is a kid's movie. You can have horror and jokes that go slightly above a 4-year-old's understanding for it to still be a kid's movie. We can't be removing scariness from kids' movies, and that's what we've done. We've removed the ability to be like, oh, that's scary, because, oh, no, don't worry, it's just a dorky crab. That's the big villain of the movie. Oh, don't worry, he's very dorky. We need true horror and scariness, and that will save the next generation, Jason.
You will know soon enough. Moana's a great example. She loves that movie and she turns her eyes away during that crab scene. That is enough for her to be scared by it. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. Jason. All right. She can come spend
the crab. The crab wasn't even meant to be scary.
Yeah, hell no, she's not spending a weekend with you now. Now I know what you're gonna
Cece watch Muppets Christmas Carol, and now she can't even look at a multicolored crab.
Here's Pet Cemetery, young Cinder. Watch the animals kill all the people. What was Cujo, where they were just on Ghostbusters we watched the other day? Paul Rudd has a great scene where he's showing all these kids horror movies. And Cujo, I forgot how bad that was. Like, to show kids like this Beethoven essentially murdering people.
Yes. Anyway,
no. I want my fragile daughter's mind to be
just wait till she
whole for as long as possible.
Wait till she spends a weekend with Uncle Rico and Aunt Monica. And
not gonna happen. Not gonna do it.
It's gonna happen. Oh,
not gonna do it.
We're gonna watch Krampus. Get ready for a Christmas movie.
Gosh, what was the
Krampus is fun. Don't sell on that movie. That's a fun movie.
What was that silly comedian throughout the 90s who had multiple movies? Steals Christmas. He steals the Thanksgiving. Ernest had a Halloween movie that scared. Yeah, that was scary for me.
Has Mimi told you about her experience watching that movie?
The Ernest? No. Yeah.
So like when my great grandmother was still alive, Mariah and Mimi would go and they'd spend like a weekend or whatever in the Bay Area with her. And she would take them to Blockbuster and let them rent whatever they wanted. So they rented Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yes,
and I remember them I still haven't seen the movie, but I remember them telling me as I was like 6 or something, and them being like, it was so scary. There's like this guy turns like kids into wooden, like, and I'm imagining this just horror element that I've never even could comprehend before.
It was scarring. Yeah, it was scarring. Yeah, and look at that. Exactly. You just proved your own point of watching something way too early.
Look how well it turned out, Jason.
Yeah.
I watched
watch
Ernest,
it. You just explained the movie and you were scarred.
I watched Ernest Saves or Steals or whatever Christmas last year, actually. I think it's on Disney Plus. I think they're on Disney Plus, or they're on something, maybe Prime or something. I don't know. But yeah, I watched. I don't know why. I was like, I gotta see an Ernest movie. Like I have only seen bits of them from years and years ago. So,
and did it hold up?
I don't know if I'd say it like holds up. I
don't think it was meant to hold up.
It never held up. It never held up when it came out.
Like it is funny because in just a very dumb way. It's very dumb. It's like he's so annoying because he's like, that's the thing is he's just a fuck up. He's constantly it's very slapstick, clumsy. He just kind of
that was his shtick. Yeah, his shtick was all.
And then it's like the people around him are trying to maintain the chaos. And then Santa Claus actually himself shows up at the end. So,
I know him.
Yeah. Anyway, Muppets Christmas Carol though, great movie. Let's see, where were we? After so the shot, yes, Mav, very great cinematographic. Yeah, I was gonna say I do see what you're saying. Cinematography choices there. I do see what you're saying as far as like a Sam Raimi with the Dutch angles and the eyeball and like the tension of the scene.
I mean, Dark Crystal Elf right there. That girl was very Dark Crystal-y, very,
Yeah, and that's actually
woman.
that's the interesting choice. Like having a puppet that doesn't match any of the other Muppets at all. Like she's so different. She looks more like almost like a classic porcelain doll. And she has this kind of weird feel to her. It's not creepy, but it's kind of creepy because it's like a little kid, but like not really sized like a little kid. It's something weird about her appearance, but intentionally weird, I guess. And then proceeding to one of my favorite parts, which is just and this is just Gonzo as a character in all of the Muppet movies, and something that I think I have latched onto him as part of my own personality is the zany enjoyment of things that are dangerous. Like Rizzo's the scaredy cat who's like, oh, he's always freaking out and like scared, and Gonzo is just laughing maniacally as they're pouring through trees, and it's like Gonzo's having a great time, Rizzo's not, and I feel like it's that like when I'm on a roller coaster, I'm usually kind of laughing because and I don't know why that's my response, but that's my response usually is like I'm laughing even as it feels perilous. I just love that scene, and I think it's a great highlight of Gonzo's personality.
What's great about this movie, or just the cast that Muppets are, is how they cast certain Muppets as certain characters. It's like Family Guy, Simpsons, where they do all these movies renditions of things, and what character who they play, and the eagle playing the headmaster of the school.
Yes.
It's like perfectly, the eagle guy being, that guy, I thought was just so well casted, and there's so many of those Muppets. You're like, perfect. Yeah. I like you in that role, sort of thing.
The whole sequence of the Ghost of Christmas Past, when he's going back, when Scrooge is reliving his past, it really is very touching. There's all there's Sam the Eagle, who's now, it's the American way.
Yeah, he's like,
it is the British way.
Yeah.
Like, there's the great Muppet incorporations, but yeah, you're watching this old just jaded curmudgeon watching his youth, and like you really do get the sense of like sadness and regret and all of these emotions that really come across with Michael Caine's performance and the way that they kind of I like the I wouldn't call it a montage, but the fading of him being like a 10-year-old and then being like a 15-year-old and then getting slightly older, and you see him kind of developing, and then going on to Fozziwick's Christmas party where he meets Belle. It's Belle?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Meets Belle, and that's kind of when you start to get another level of like regret, and he's watching like the woman that he loved, but that he let business and financial gain triumph over love. It is a very like somber sadness that I really appreciate, because this movie is the full experience. It's comedy, it's horror, and it's tragedy, and I think this movie pulls it off just incredibly well.
I will say I do not. It's very interesting. Like, so growing up, we had the VHS, and we watched the version where they have Belle's song in it.
Yeah,
and so
I want to talk
it's
about that.
very noticeable. Like they had, so on Disney Plus, when Disney Plus first came out, and I watched this on Disney Plus, that was a deleted scene. It was removed. Now if you go to extras on Disney Plus, you have full version as an option with the song included, which I didn't know until this watching. So apparently for some reason, the chairman of Disney at the time was like, I don't like that scene. Let's take it out. For some,
they thought it was too sad for kids. Yeah, and they pulled it from the movie.
Right, but it's an important piece because of how it's the antithesis of the ending song. Because that song is When Love Is Gone. She sings When Love Is Gone and talking about how he's just like, there's no more love in the relationship. And then at the very end of the movie is The Love We Found. and it's like this little bow that they like try to Mr. Chairman, whatever his name was, Jeff,
Fuck
was,
you, Jeff.
Yeah, fuck you, Jeff. Like he removed, and so yeah, it's a good song. It doesn't say that that actress does a good job, but
Henson made that exact comment. He was like, "You didn't see the full picture by removing that song." So yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great, as I say that, yeah, that little, yeah, say it's, and again, you've referenced pacing, but it's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like him from like his like youth, seeing him progress, seems like just a kind of a normal kid, really well, very studious, and then is just like, and then yeah, as he's getting older, more jaded, caring less about people, more about like his career. And then yeah, it's just like the breaking point is his relationship, and then losing it, and then it's like, and then from there, fast forward back to present day, Ghost of Christmas Past leaves him to kind of just sit in those feelings, and then you get a hard turn to Ghost of Christmas Present.
He never gets the girl back. You know, that's something else towards the end when he's getting, everyone else is happy and he's kind of mending things. Now she's not back in the picture. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad your heart warmed." It's like, no, that ship has sailed.
I have a feeling, Jason, that this is your favorite character. For some reason, I feel like you specifically will love or do love the Ghost of Christmas Present.
The jolly gluttonous large man.
There's nothing that says he's gluttonous just because he's large. Come on, health at every size, Jason.
See, no, I mean, he is one of my favorite characters in the Mickey Mouse version. Like, I loved that scene. You know, it's like there is a very like, I guess, visceral, because there's lots of like jams and jellies and honeys, and like as he's eating and the food, and I remember Mickey falling into it and stuff, and he is really large. So I feel like that movie did that ghost better than this one, but I did like him in this one. You know, it was big, and then he got kind of smaller and things like that, and it was kind of cool to see a Muppet in obviously a person in the costume thing more than it was like puppetry. So it was cool when he kind of shoulder around him and he was fun and things like that. But if you're just trying to connect jovial person to another jovial person, I don't know if that was the connection right there. But
there was just such an appreciation for life that I feel like you and him both share.
No, I've lost most of that with the job lately. So
you're right, Jason. Ghost of Christmas Future. That's who you are. That's probably your favorite character.
Yeah, the skeletal zombie in the hood is someone more connect with the darker side of Christmas. But no, I mean, I enjoyed that scene. I wouldn't say it's my favorite ghost of the three, though. Yeah.
The Jerry Nelson, one of the puppeteers. So that character there's an actor, just like Darth Vader. There's an actor inside the suit, and then there is the animatronic face that Jerry Nelson is off behind the camera, controlling the animatronic face while saying the lines. So he's controlling, like on a switchboard, the face and the facial expressions while like an actor's inside and doing all this. And Jerry Nelson's also saying all the lines. It's really fucking cool. I love this character. I love everything. It is such a blast when he comes on. It's just you're like, oh, this is the fun part of the movie because it's so much joy and fun. His song is phenomenal, and then also there is the added element of the end where he never gets sad, but there is a melancholy at the end where he says, "My time has come." There is a melancholy there that perfectly transitions to the final act of the movie.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, well, like, it's because like you get these kind of changing vibes of the movie as it goes through these different themes and these emotional waves, and then with that, you get this high peak where he's basically expounding upon all the joys of Christmas and the Christmas the spirit of Christmas and the joy and positive vibes that follow. And then he like brings it back down to earth when he takes him to Kermit's home, or Kermit Cratchit's home. and is basically just like, yeah, well, Tiny Tim's gonna die if you don't stop being an asshole. Is kind of what he's getting at, and yeah, like it's like a brilliant, and obviously this is just the story, is like the brilliance of hyping you up and then bringing you back down to reality of being like with a character that he knows. He knows the character of Cratchit, and then showing him like just like the little kid who's sick. And I love the effect of him getting older as they like go through the scenes. That he starts to get gray. Like the Ghost of Christmas Past doesn't age, but the Ghost of Christmas Present, because it's just the present, is a very short window, and I love that added effect that they did. They didn't have to do it that way, but I really like the creative choice there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember that being so prevalent, and it did hit me a little bit different this time watching, which I'm still on the boat. This is a much more adult movie than it was pitched for.
Jason, you need to start showing your kid more adult, like Silence of the Lambs, right? That'd be a good, like, okay, here's Bluey, now here's Silence of the Lambs. Come on, Jason, we need to get Cece up to our level.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with kids' movies like connecting more with adults that are watching them, because those are the ones that are choosing to rewatch these movies or paying for that ticket to go 3 times at the theater for. It's like, if you enjoy Super Mario Brothers, she will enjoy Super Mario Brothers.
The transition to and again a very dark, dreary, which perfectly represents the book. I don't know. I haven't watched all these, like the latest. I never even watched the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol one, so I don't know how other movies have done it, or other more modern movies have done it. But I feel like this probably represents the book very well, in that just the absolute the absence in the third act, or at least the beginning of the third act, of hope or of anything joyous, when you just see that the possibility. If you saw in a third person of your death and people were like happy you were dead, or they didn't care, and people were talking about like what a piece of shit you were, it is really crazy, especially with the specter of death, a really cool costume. I mean, it's not just the Grim Reaper. It's the Grim Reaper, but he looks like a Nazgul, but he's much bigger and like not practical looking. He's just this presence and never says anything and just points, and it's scary. He looks like a character I've killed multiple times in Dark Souls. Like a very cool costume that they've pulled off in that. And I love that sequence. And it really does bring you to the utter depths of watching Scrooge just break, knowing that his life has been for nothing because he's always just been about himself.
And it just shows how oblivious he is to everything. Like everyone's making fun of him dying, like, who's this guy that they're making fun of? It couldn't possibly be me, kind of attitude. It's like, oh dude, you're so far gone.
Just a side comment, there are multiple great lines by pigs in this movie.
Oh yeah, they talk so much shit. The pigs talk so much shit.
So much shit about pigs just being fatties, which is so great. Like one of the earlier scenes, one of them's like, "Oh, that was a great meal. What should we do now? Lunch." And then in this scene, when they're talking about like his funeral, and he's like, Scrooge is picking up on the fact of like whose funeral they're talking about, and he's like, I don't know who'd go to that funeral. And he's like, I'll go. And they're like, you would? If lunch is provided. It's great. It's such a funny little detail to add in, that all the pigs are so piggish.
Gluttonous, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I it's always, I remember, like it always gives me Nazgul, Ring Wraith vibes. I'm expecting Aragorn to pop out of the shadows with a torch at any moment. But I think, it doesn't. The bringing the pinnacle of bringing him all the way to his own grave, and Michael Caine's acting is just so good. It's like him just like he's like realizing what's happening. It's like setting in, and he's just like slowly kind of unraveling. And he's just like, by the end of it, he's just like on his knees, like in tears. Great Cinema. Insert the cinema meme here.
How old is he in this movie? We were trying to figure that out.
Michael Caine's like Patrick Stewart. They've been 80 for.
I know, it's so hard to tell, and I couldn't figure out where
he
was.
89/90 right now. So 31 years ago. So yeah, he's like 60.
Wow. I mean, because he's got dark hair. I mean, maybe it's dyed, but he looks one of his youngest roles. You know that I can.
I actually think he might be wearing like a wig, or either a wig or he did some sort of like hair transplant after this movie, because he has like a semi-normal-ish old man's head of hair in the Batman movies, which obviously happened way later, like 10 years later. So I kind of was like looking at his head trying to figure that out, but yeah. So anyway, sorry, that's just a random detail that popped into my mind.
No, Michael Caine. I have not talked about his performance enough, but it is a crazy feat to really bring the chops, and it never feels jarring, because in a short 90-ish minute movie, it never feels jarring that he goes from complete stone cold emotionless guy, or not emotionless because he does get very angry at moments and he loses his temper, but just no human connection. And then he's confronted with the Marleys, and then he's kind of like reverts to being the apprentice that, like, to them, he's no longer the guy in charge of everything. He's kind of the apprentice that's like, oh, my masters that are making fun of me. And then it's the trip to the past. And then he's like, oh, yes, like this is my old schoolroom. And then it's kind of that sparks that. And then he gets slowly more like aware of the surroundings. And then he's like sad because he realized what's going to happen to Tiny Tim. So it is a brilliant, just very well done. It never goes just from like one emotion to the other. And it doesn't feels like a perfect transcendence of him going from heartless to the man that saves Christmas and Tiny Tim in the amazing last, I don't know, 5 minutes of the movie. The rabbit, we haven't even mentioned the rabbit yet. I don't even know if this guy's been in any other Muppet things, but the rabbit's fucking awesome and like adorable. And the way that his eyes like move and he's singing along at the beginning when we get introduced to him, and Scrooge chucks the what's it called? The wreath at him. And then later he comes back and he's the kid character from A Christmas Carol that's like, oh, it's Christmas morning, sir. It's just love the last 5 minutes. It's such a feel good to watch Michael Caine sing for the first time ever, other than the musical number earlier to a lesser extent, but sing and the whole town follows him. It's just a joy, a true Christmas triumph of a feeling is watching the end of this movie.
It's a great character arc for Michael Caine. I mean, we've seen Scrooge do it all, many other movies, but yeah, it seems so believable in this movie, and it happening in one night, too, like him becoming a different person from the time he goes to bed to the time he wakes up in the morning. It feels believable. It feels like that night was long for him and he did learn a lot, and yeah, you're with him on this journey sort of thing. So yeah, that's a good part of an hour and a half. I mean, hour and 22 minutes, I think, is what I wrote down, is like from like first scene to last scene. So I mean, it's a quick movie, and the fact you get invested in character, and then by the end of it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see someone turning around like that. Steve Whitmore is the name of the Bean Bunny, but he's also Rizzo the Rat and Kermit the Frog in it too. So yeah, he's got the chops, which that was something else I was surprised about, is the lack of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, them not being very big. But there's also Jim Henson was a voice of Kermit the Frog forever. And so this is the first movie where now Jim Henson was going to be there. So maybe they were like, let's phase Kermit out for this one until we find someone else who can do the voice for a little while. So, but yeah, the fact that the ending feels like it's quick. It's like done and then done, and like as soon as the last ghost, and then it's there and then it's done. They're seeing the credits are rolling. It doesn't feel so rushed. It feels like, oh, perfect. I'm glad that bow is tied like extra quick on this package, and then we're done.
Another great pigs being pigs scene is Miss Piggy eating the chestnuts. Like she's like,
I was just inspecting them.
Yeah. I was not eating them. I was inspecting them. And And also, oh yeah, and shout out to her two little the two little pig daughters are like great little side characters. Mina and Patina.
Yeah.
Patina! Yeah, she just can't get them right.
Whatever your name is.
Yeah,
The
whatever.
classic twin thing. Like, which one are you again?
The
If you
repeating
were
of the
here, I would
line,
give him a
I hope he chokes.
Joe. I know Mariah loves that line. I know Mariah has a particular fascination with that line, and yeah, it's great because like the Peter's the frog boy. That's not Tiny Tim. It's Peter and Tiny Tim, and Peter's like kind of a throwaway character. He doesn't really say anything or do anything, but Mina and Patina have very feisty little personalities, which makes for good content.
All the King siblings, if you put you in a room, I feel like you guys could all finish the movie, like quoting wise. Like one of you could pick up the other one if they didn't know, the next line.
Jason, I would say that I know the Muppets Christmas Carol like the back of my hand.
Oh, really? What's it like?
There's a mole on my thumb and a scar from when I fell down on my bike.
So yeah, the great finale, great. They all go into Kermit's house, or actually Kermit and Miss Piggy meet him at the front door. Ebenezer Scrooge at the front door, who puts on the facade that he's angry, and then it turns out that he's going to raise his salary, and I'm going to raise it right off the roof. Great, just breaking of the character for one moment, and then they sit in and have the wonderful meal. The goose that's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Just a wonderful, amazing Christmas movie. Ratings, final thoughts. Jason, you're not quite as cheery as Rembo and I on this one, but go ahead and give us your worst.
It did start to melt my cold heart of Christmas, where it takes me a while to get into the Christmas spirit, and this definitely helped. So, but like I said, this was not one of my grow up, watch every year sort of movies. So it had definitely a different place in my heart. Definitely one of the top 5 of Christmas carols. I feel like there's better Christmas Carol renditions in my childhood nostalgia. I mean, the Mickey one being like the number one for me. I mean, that was just because I watched that as much as you guys did this movie. So the Mickey's Christmas Carol was
it's a good one for sure.
Yeah. And then probably the Patrick Stewart one too. I know that was a little bit later, but I remember watching that more with like the parents and things like that, like a couple Christmases in a row, just because love me some Patrick Stewart. But no, it's a great movie. Like, as more as a non-even Christmas movie, like we hype so much about how good Michael Caine is and the progression of his character and how this movie goes along, which not many Christmas movies can say any of those sort of things. So usually just some stupid, like present opening Christmas caroling kind of like get you in the holiday spirit, put in the background while you're doing other things at Christmas time. This is actually like a good movie. Like, you could watch this not being around the Christmas time. So that aspect, 8 out of 10 probably. I say that a lot with my ratings. Probably an 8 out of 10. Like,
it could change. Movie ratings change.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, so it's consecutive more viewings, which I could see this being one of our family kind of Christmas movies we watch. So yeah, no, great watch, and a solid 8.
Damn, Jason, if you're gonna give this an 8, then I gotta go. I'm gonna have to say a 10. This movie's gotta be a 10 for me. If this is an 8,
this is the Price and Right situation where it's like, where did he go? Okay,
I mean, I would at minimum. I'm giving this movie a 9. It's a masterpiece. It's like, what would you point at and being like, oh, this movie could have done better at? Like, for what it sets out to do, it nails it completely. Michael Caine's performance by itself is a 10. The soundtrack is awesome. The comedic bits are great. Rizzo and Gonzo are like consistent quality entertainment the whole time. Is there anything that I missed that I wanted to comment on? I don't think so. I check my notes here. No. Yeah, I fucking love this movie. I think it's I never get tired of watching it. It warms the cockles of my heart, as Aunt Lori would say. But there's one like last thing that I was trying to think of, but that doesn't come to mind now. That's okay. Yeah, I think that I mean I still Muppets. I will say Muppets Treasure Island is my favorite all time Muppet movie. And but this is so close. It's just right there. It's right there.
I'll go 9 out of 10. This is yeah, I think it's 8 out of 10 is probably where it's on my IMDb, I believe. But I'll bump it to the 9 out of 10. Could be 10 out of 10. It is the ultimate experience. The highs, the lows, the humor, the songs. And I am not, Jason, just like you. I don't like musical movies typically. There's very few that I enjoy. And when, a lot of times, actually, I take that, recently Monica was watching La La Land. And I was
just about to say that. That's in our house a lot.
I was actually impressed because the movie was very restraint, showed a lot of restraint with its musical numbers. And so when they happened, it was like they happened and then the narrative continued. I was like, oh, I appreciate that. This movie has a lot of musical numbers, but they are all amazing. They're all great. Just the amount of work that the Muppets took, when they're on their TV show and then translation to movies. It is so cool that these practical effect puppeteers brought them to life and were able to be really funny and charismatic and to do it in a classic American, British Charles Dickens tale, like A Christmas Carol. It's a perfect marriage. And Michael Caine, I'm pretty sure he's 90 years old. So I love Michael Caine. I love him in a lot of things. He's one of the last, one of the last of his generation to still be alive. So I appreciate and love Michael Caine for putting everything he had into this role. That when I was a little, single-digit age kid, saw this movie, fell in love with it, and it is a joy to watch every Christmas. And God bless the Muppets. God bless the Muppets. God bless everyone. And that's last page.